Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talents Unlimited, where we meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. You're in for a treat tonight. We have our guest speaker, Miss Annie Hall, who is going to bring some exciting information to us tonight. Our podcast host tonight is Miss Flora Turner, and she is going to introduce our speaker for tonight. Flora, are you ready? Take it away.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. We are excited to be here tonight, and we have an exciting message. Our speaker tonight is Distinguished Toastmaster Annie Hall. Annie has been a member of Citywide since 2014, Citywide and Eye Openers Toastmasters since 2014. She used to we used to travel to all of the conventions, and Toastmaster became a love to her. And being a Toastmaster and Toastmasters became her love, she not only loved Toastmaster, she loved mentoring. She loves mentoring inside and outside of Toastmasters. Distinguished Toastmaster Annie Hall's subject tonight is toxicity. That's the title of her speech tonight. We are living in the most toxic time in living history, and it's time for us to wake up because we can control what goes on in our bodies. Distinguished Toastmaster Annie Hall. Toxicity. Distinguished Toastmaster Annie Hall.
Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, it is my honor and my privilege to be with you tonight and to share some information that I think all of us can use in some way. Toxicity is my topic. Toxins are agents that can produce an adverse biological effect in our bodies. It might be chemical, such as cyanide and plastic. It might be physical, such as radiation, or it might even be biological, something as simple as snake venom. Well, some of the other common toxins might be radon in the basement, lead in the drinking waters. How about exhaust from the cars on the freeways? We all deal with that. Chemicals that are released from the landfills. That's just a few examples of these things, but all of these toxins can hurt our bodies. And by understanding how, you can reduce your exposure to these chemicals and then reduce the harmful effects, the harmful health effects on our bodies. I could name some more. I know some of you've heard of glyphosate. That's probably a big word. You don't know what that is, but it's a chemical that was put on the grass to kill grasses. Chemicals like pesticides. There's one, PCB, is now I'm going to have to help me with this word, is polychlorinated bifacine, and they call it PCB. Now, these are man-made chemicals that were made even before the 1980s, like caulk, paint, glue, plastics, fluorescent lighting, and even the transformers that are on the poles for our electricity. These toxins damage our immune system, the enzymes that are in our bodies, and they present the production of hemoglobins in our bodies, which can accelerate aging. That's why some people look older than they really are. It also can lead to the failure of energy production in our bodies and lower the protection that we have against oxidized stress. Failure for the normal body functions usually increase our risk for disease. And which disease do you think we have the most? I want to say, I'm even scared to say the word. The one disease we want to stay away from and not cause it to happen in our body is the big C, the big cancer. These toxins can actually cause cancer within our bodies. Many times when someone is diagnosed with cancer, the first thing they wonder is, how did I get it? Well, you'll never know. The things we are exposed to, even the air we breathe, is toxic. Do you know that you can put lotion, your lotion that you put on your skin, shampoo that you put in your hair, these things go directly into the bloodstream and then directly into the kidneys. Even colognes that we spray, these are things that just go in because the skin is a breathable organ and it takes in things and it pushes things out. Sometimes if you get a rash on your skin and you're wondering, what did I touch? What did I do? Sometimes you have eaten something that may be toxic in your body and your skin is pushing it out. So your rash might have been from food. It might have been from something you breathed in. It might have been something you rubbed, but the body pushes it out in the form of that rash because it is a toxin. How about smells? When you smell something, it goes into your nostrils, it goes straight to the hippocampus of your brain. And this creates degeneration in the neurons of the brain, which leads to what? Dementia, a demented brain. And it can be either dementia or Alzheimer's. There's a lot of studies about what causes Alzheimer's. It's not always known. And we're dealing right now with my mother. My mother's 88 years old, and she was beginning to be very forgetful. So my sister, the nurse, said she needs a brain scan. So we did. We took her in for a brain scan. And they said she had holes in her brain. Holes in her brain. This is a demented brain. She was diagnosed with the beginning of dementia, and that was 3 years ago. And it has progressed. She worked as a beautician for 50 years, smelling chemicals, smelling hair, hot hair. In our culture, we press hair with heat, hot hair. And she spent all those years with all this going into her nostrils, into the hippocampus of her brain. And now she's dealing with dementia. This is not something that she could have predicted. Sometimes she says her knees hurt. Oh, I spent all these years bending over and working, shampooing hair, and now my knees hurt. But her knees don't hurt. And the damage to her knees is not as bad as the damage to her brain because she can still walk. She may need a cane or a walker, but she still gets around. But her brain is still dementing and it is progressive. And a lot of this is from the things that we eat, drink, smell, touch. Toxicity is a serious problem for humankind, and most of us don't realize it. One item that we all come in contact with is plastics. There's a chemical in plastics called bisphenol A, or BPA. It's in all of our plastics. It is a part of the recipe. Water bottles have BPA in them. We buy water all the time instead of using a container that we buy maybe that's has metal in it. We go ahead and we buy the water bottles in the store, and we're constantly drinking the plastic. Well, they say it doesn't matter if you get plastic in your system because it's not really hurting that much. And who knows how much plastic we have in our bodies? Well, it's not a matter of whether or not we have plastic, it's a matter of how much we actually have. And there's really no way of measuring it. The BPA is a chemical within the plastic bottle, even Tupperware. If you remember, some of us are at the age where we remember Tupperware. Well, Tupperware since 2010, 2010, now all the Tupperware no longer has BPA in it. It's BPA free. That's according to their website. But prior to 2010, Tupperware had BPA in it. Plastics that we put our food in, our food containers, water that we drink, plastic. Well, BPA is a toxin that does destroy our health. No doubt about it. One of the biggest other big source, not the biggest, but one of the other big sources of the BPA is packaged food. Packaged food. Now, you might get, like, say, your vegetables or your beans in a can, and you're thinking this is canned. Well, the metal can or the cardboard container that you get is lined with a resin made from BPA. So even though you got a metal can, it's got BPA in it. And this BPA protects the lining of the can so the food is not contaminated. And it protects the container from corrosion. And it extends the shelf life of the food. Because right now, our society has to feed the masses. We have to figure out ways to feed the masses. There was a time we grew up on a farm. And at that time, our little farm fed us. We got everything we ate out of the garden. We killed our own animals, chicken, cows, pigs, ducks, rabbits. Our own, got all of our vegetables. But now our society has to feed the masses. So we have to figure out a way to keep this food safe. And this is one of the ways that society is trying to keep the food safe. And they're feeding us poison. They're feeding us plastics. There was a study done on 2 genetically identical mice. They were like twin mice. They were born at the same time, exactly the same. And they were fed the same diet, got the same exercise. But one of the mice was given BPA, plastic. And then he started to gain weight. And the hair color on the mouse began to change. The only difference between the 2 mice was the BPA. Well, when they stopped feeding the BPA to the mouse lost weight. The hair color actually went back. This study was done by the medical community, and now they created a word from this study called obesogens. You know what it is to be obese. Obesogens are things that make us fat. And this is a new word that came out of that study, and it's used within the medical community. Toxins also make us insulin resistant. Now, a lot of us that are not medical even know what that means. When you're insulin resistant, you're talking sugar diabetes. Well, we call it sugar. Other people call it diabetes. Sugar diabetes. Well, there are a lot of different categories. I'm not going to go into all of the toxins. There's so many chemicals that we can present. And do you know they cannot measure the plastic, the BPA in your system? Because it does flush. It flushes, but we don't know what parts, where it's went in the body that it's staying, that it might cause cancer, might cause diabetes, it might cause brain damage. But if they try to measure the BPA, it is flushed out and they can't measure it. They didn't even measure it in the mouse. They could only see the effects of the BPA in the mouse. And we are definitely at risk. Who else is at risk? Well, there's a serious risk to fetuses and infants. And this is a group that they have shown the adverse effects from the endocrine disruptors. Certain plastics are considered to be endocrine disruptors, and it affects our children. And BPA is one of those. The endocrine system, let me read this. The endocrine system is related to, denoting the glands and the secretions of hormones in the body. And this is really something that affects newborns and fetuses, but it's affecting fetuses that are still within the mother's womb. And infants, baby plastic bottles that we were feeding our babies, or foods that's stored in plastic. That's one of the reasons we used to get baby food in glass jars. Now it's in plastics. It has definitely changed. These chemicals affect the hormones in our bodies, which infects our endocrine system. And the chemicals are associated with a wide array of different health issues. And of course, the development of hormones actually helps to shape our vertebrae, our brain, our reproductive organs, and all of our sex-specific physiology and behaviors emerge. It's one of the reasons men have problems with erectile dysfunction because of the chemicals within their bodies. I can go on and on. There's a lot of research, and there are a lot of different studies. And the FDA says that the Federal Drug Administration feels like it is not a risk. The amount of plastic in our system is not high enough to worth them pulling it out, because they feel like it's not that harmful. But they promise to continue to do research. So as they continue to do research, we have to make our own decisions about what it is that we're going to do. Are we going to put up with heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, insulin resistance, or the increase the fat cells in our body? Are we going to put up with that, or are we going to do something to change it? Well, what can we do? Number one, you can stop buying water in plastic bottles. Now, I mean, the water that comes in the faucet has its problems too, but we can get filters at home. We can filter our water, and we can buy bottles at home. There are bottles that are, it says right on it, BPA free. So you can buy bottles that they are plastic, but they don't have BPAs, or you can get bottles that are metal inside. And those bottles usually insulate and keep your water or whatever you're drinking cold. You can do something about the things in your house when you're buying plastic Ziploc bags. There are BPA plastic bags, BPA-free plastic bags you can buy. Don't buy foods that is stored in plastic. If you look on the bottom of your plastic containers, there's 7 numbers. If it's a number 1 through 6, it is safe. If it has a number 7, it has BPA. So, yes, we are living in one of the most toxic times in our world history. What are we going to do? It is up to us as individuals to make a conscious decision to watch what we eat. We have to do the research. I mean, I've done a little research. There are compostable Ziploc bags. You can throw them and they'll compost down. They don't have the BPA in it. I've done some research. It might cost a little bit more, but it's a decision that you're going to have to make. And we understand that we are truly living in the most toxic time in human history. So people are suffering now more than ever, suffering from food, shampoos,
Yellow.
water bottles. There's a vast number of things out there that is poisoning us, but we can do something about it. You're going to have to do your research. I researched a little bit, but I'm not a scientist. Do your research and change some things. Look and see what's in your refrigerator, what's in your cupboard, what's in your medicine chest. Some of your vitamins even have coatings that are toxic. Do your research. Okay, are there any questions? CJ.
Annie, that was awesome. Awesome, awesome. I am glad you brought that to our attention. I am very aware I very seldom drink bottled water because of that fact. And I always try to check to make sure it says BPA free. We have a filter, so I use the water from the refrigerator. That's what I've done for years.
What I
And
do.
something else that we do, Annie, here is that my daughter bought glass instead of having like Tupperware to put your food in. We have glass containers that we put our food in to because I know when you put them in that plastic, they stain, some foods, so I know that's not healthy because it's absorbing the food. So we use glass containers. So I'm glad that was such a great subject, Annie. I'm gonna do some more research. And one other comment I want to make about hormones, because I do believe that it does have effect on our young people because as we were growing up, we were thin. It was very few obese kids. It wasn't any fat kids like there are today. So I think that some of the food in the containers are causing the children to be overweight, at a young age. We didn't have any, teenagers, we were thin teenagers. We didn't have, but it's just so many overweight young people today. It's just, I was just talking to someone the other day about why are the young people, we're just a little bit heavier, but it's because we are not eating food from the land and we have all these toxicities that we're eating that's causing the hormonal changes.
You're absolutely correct. And many, like you say, many of us don't realize it. We live in a junk food society. We don't eat from the land anymore. We eat from the freezer. We eat from the restaurants down the street, the McDonald's, the Burger King, the Chick-fil-A. And we don't know what they're doing with that. We don't know what chemicals. If they're giving their animals growth hormones, we're getting them too.
Yeah.
Well, Annie, I gotta say, I have to disagree with some of the things that you say.
Okay.
And not because of anything other than just my picture. Just my picture. Watch. I'll turn off that video. Look at my picture. See how beautiful I look?
I saw that.
You can't get any better than that.
You cannot. You are beautiful.
But I actually, you mentioned about the water bottles, and I looked. So you said the recycle number? Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, so
Yes.
this particular one is from Publix, and the recycle number is number one.
Number one.
Number one. That means the Publix spring water does not have the PCBA stuff that you were talking about. So that's a good thing for me.
A good thing for you. That's a good thing for you.
Annie,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
are you
Flora.
done, Jim? Annie,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
say that you began a vegan lifestyle, and this vegan lifestyle helped you to identify and clean some toxins from your body. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yes, because I seem to be eating, and as I got older, I was getting fatter and fatter, and I couldn't identify it. I first changed to becoming a vegetarian. And in being a vegetarian, I still didn't lose any weight because I was still eating cheese, milk, eggs, but I wasn't eating meat because I'm thinking about the growth hormones, but I was still eating things from the animals. when I changed over to becoming a vegan, going plant-based. Now, wait a minute, there's 2 steps to becoming a vegan. I became a vegan and I wasn't losing weight because I was eating Impossible Burgers and Beyond Burgers. That's processed food. That was not food. I didn't make the veggie burgers. They were being made in the store. But when I went fully plant-based, then whole food plant-based, not eating the Impossible Burgers and the vegan, buying them in the Ralph's. Ralph's will sell Impossible Burgers, Beyond Burgers. There's a whole plethora of vegan foods that you can buy in the stores. But that is still processed food. It's processed. You don't know exactly what's in it. There are many things that they put in it that you can't even pronounce. And they package it in plastic. That's another thing. The food that you get in the dairy department, the meat department, is packaged in plastic. So you're still getting this plastic in your system. But by getting whole foods from the market, or even if you go in Ralph's and you're getting it from the produce department, it is whole food. It is not wrapped in plastic. I don't buy it. I buy it because it comes usually in a carton. Unfortunately, some of the stuff is, you don't know when it's been picked. But going for whole food and plant-based has made a difference in my system. I don't have high blood pressure. There was a threat at one point. My blood pressure was high. I don't take any medicine, but I don't have any high blood pressure. I don't have diabetes. At one point, they said I was pre-diabetic. I never became diabetic. I don't have any heart disease or what are the other diseases? I don't have any of those diseases. I had a little problem with my knees with inflammation, arthritis. I'm getting old. And I have discovered even some ways to help with my arthritis, things that cause inflammation in your body. And I'm starting to drop weight because I'm eating plant-based whole foods. Most of my foods are raw. I do cook some things. I cook vegetables, and I'll cook cauliflower. I'll cook broccoli. I cook quinoa and even rice, cook potatoes. But I eat more whole food and raw food, but my food is whole food, and I feel healthier. I feel better. I was having some problems even with my memory, and I feel like my memory has improved because I even switched from just saying that I was vegan to being whole food, plant-based. Did that answer your question, Flora?
You're
Flora,
muted, Flora. You're muted, Flora.
I wanted to make sure we understood the difference between plant-based whole foods and vegan, because when I was coming up, as I came up, I always thought they were the same. Vegan, plant-based, all of it, was the same. I only understood the vegetarian was different. But now I do understand the difference in vegan and plant-based, whole food plant-based. That you did answer my question.
Thank you. Yes, there's only a slight difference, but the difference in what is made commercially. The vegan items that are made commercially still have toxins, and they are still not the best for your body because they are processed. And we have to get away from the processed food into whole foods that are plant-based. Anything else?
You're basically saying the same thing Robert was saying when he was talking about the vitamins and all that, right? So if it's God made, it's okay, but if it's man made, it's no way.
Real quick.
I do see Carolyn's hand is raised.
I'm gonna make a quick joke like comment, and then I have a question for you. The other day, my daughter showed me a picture of Cher. Y'all know how old she is. She has not eaten cheese for over 40 years. So my daughter said she was gonna stop eating cheese because she want to look as good as Cher.
Yeah.
But my question to you, Annie, do you eat more vegetables than fruit?
I do eat more vegetables than fruit, but I do eat fruit only because I have discovered that sugar causes inflammation and it causes me to have inflammation problems. And there is sugar in most fruit. So I will have some fruit I love to get. Oh, I love watermelon, and I'll get watermelon. I'll just sit and eat watermelon. But I do limit the amount of fruit that I take in. I don't take in any sugar. I drink my coffee black. I try very hard. I don't even use honey because honey is made from animals. It's not plant-based. I find other ways to, there's other plant-based sweeteners like stevia, but I don't put sweets in most of my food. I very seldom have anything. But I'm not so off the wall that I won't have a cookie or I won't have some ice cream. If I go to a party, I'm going to have a piece of cake. But do you know 2 days from now, I will feel that cake in my knees? And I can tell, I said, I've had too much sugar because I can tell because it causes inflammation in my body. And it's sugar. I discovered the sugar did that when my husband gave me a book and it was called The Sugar Buster. And that's when I discovered a lot of my problems with inflammation was caused by sugar. And I used to tease my sister because she drank black coffee. And I had to wean myself off the cream, first the sugar. And cream is sweet. And then I weaned myself off the cream and I drink my coffee black now too.
So how
Well,
long did that take? Because that's my question is I want to learn how to drink the black coffee, but so far I've been drinking coffee, you all, since I was 7 years old.
Me too.
So it's kind of hard. I like for it to taste a certain way, but did it take you a long time to, you said the sugar first and then the cream?
Well, I wouldn't say it took me a long time because of my determination. Once I discovered that it was causing me a problem, I wanted to get past the problem. So I kind of sped it up. And I'll tell you, I've never met a cup of coffee that tastes as good as it smells. But I love to smell coffee. And I just had to wean myself. And, you have to do what's best for you, whatever your time frame is. Because like I say, first I dropped the sugar and most of the creams are sweet. So I had coffee with only cream, and then a little less cream, a little less cream, and less cream. And finally, no cream and just coffee. And I tell you, everybody spends a lot of money going to Starbucks, but I don't like Starbucks coffee. The black Starbucks coffee doesn't taste good to me. It's not worth the money.
Annie, real quick, a couple
Yes,
weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I did a presentation, and it had to do with weight. And I don't want to go too long, but you talked about meat and growth hormones, right? And one of the things and that is true, right? For sure, that's true. But that's why when you do eat meat, it has to be grass-fed.
Grass-fed, that's right.
And the same thing with eggs. Eggs have to be free range where they eat what they normally eat, and that's anything on the ground, worms and all kinds of things like that. But it's so hard to find those type of things. And the big thing about, real quick, and then I'm going to go into your evaluation here, but real quick, one of the big things about plant-based foods is they're made out of grains. And grains, like beers, cause carbohydrates. And when you get carbohydrates of any kind, it turns it into sugar. And when it turns into sugar, that's where the weight gain begins, because your body is now storing that sugar. And you hit it right on the nail, right on the head when it comes down to the inflammation and things like that. So for myself, I'm on a meat diet.
Mhm.
Because meat doesn't have carbohydrates, it doesn't have sugar, it doesn't cause diabetes. And you doing the vegetarian diet is the same. Now, I would have to say, to have balance, I'll eat meat and I'll have my greens with it, because you have to have one complements the other.
Right.
Okay, because being a veterinarian, I'm thinking of my dogs all the time, but
Vegetarian.
Vegetarian. It doesn't, one of the drawbacks in that meat also is that each one of them does not contains all the supplements that a body needs, right? And lastly, milk. You mentioned milk, and I learned this the hard way, and we all did, and that is about lactose-free milk. The difference between lactose-free milk and regular milk is lactose, they remove all the glucose out of the milk because milk contains sugar.
Yes, it does.
But having said that, I would like to say that this was a very informative presentation. The list goes on and on about all of the information you provided, just beginning with the examples of all the chemicals, the leads. The list goes on and on. And then you led up to how it all affected us with the big C, carcinogens and cancer, because all of that would be grouped into carcinogens. The same thing with the carbohydrates. The carbohydrates also can lead up to the big C as well. So, but you hit the nail on the head so many times. You hit that nail so many times, you can build a house. That's how many times you hit that son of a gun. And when you suggested to all of us, to the world basically, because this is posted for all of you, is to do that research.
The research.
Do the research. We are responsible for our own health. You can't have the doctor be responsible for the decisions you make when you're not in his room. It is our responsibility. And those type of suggestions that you made, you're not a doctor. You said that. You're not suggesting that we just go out and do something, but you said do the research because we have everything available to us. Now, I would have to say that your voice variation, your hands, everything was just on top. It was top notch all the way. As another Toastmaster said, whenever you speak, it's always a learning lesson for all of us. And once again, I'm learning from you every time you speak. All in all, wonderful, wonderful presentation, informative to the hilt. And that's what I love about this podcast. It's not about just the same thing. This is about a topic, informative topic that we all learn about, and it keeps us wanting more and more and more. Thank you, Annie, for that wonderful presentation. Back to our host.
Yes, Annie, I really enjoyed that presentation. And I just want to make one comment regarding the presentation to say to all, there's lots of plant proteins, okay? All plants-based products are not all carbs, okay? And they are not all grains. There are plant proteins or plant-based proteins, okay? But again, do your research as to which plants have the most protein in them. Yes, Annie?
Might I suggest looking up the glycemic index? And the glycemic index will tell you which ones have the most carbs and the least carbs, because you do have to have a certain amount of carbohydrates, but you have to have that protein, and you have to know what the balance is of what you need, how much of what you need. And sometimes we have to kind of write down, I have to make sure, one thing I have to make sure I get is vitamin B, because I'm told that you don't get a lot of B as a vegan. I take B supplements and I take B12, but most anything else I can get in my diet. But I have to be conscious of making sure I get protein and making sure I'm not getting a lot of the carbohydrates that are too high in sugar. And like I say, if I get the sugar, my knees will tell me.
Okay, well, we're done. Thank you, Annie, for this wonderful podcast. And I will now turn the meeting over to our presiding officer, Carolyn
Yes,
Moore.
yes. Thank you again, Annie. I just cannot tell you how much I enjoyed that presentation and how much I have learned. And I'm going to do some more research because I am looking to lose weight and I'm headed towards a vegan diet. So I will be doing some more research on that. And I thank you again for such a wonderful, informative podcast. Okay, Jim, you can start recording.